Thanks, Steve. So my name is Oliver. I'm the CEO and co-founder at ViSenze. I'm very happy to be here today. So over the next 20 minutes, I'll just very quickly share with you our analysis on the impact of COVID-19, the changes in consumer spending, and where do we see the new normal in retail, and how can retailers adapt to it, and what kind of AI tech solutions can help fundamentally address the new normal. Before that, a little bit about ViSenze. We're an AI company that specializes in computer vision with 100% focus on retail and e-commerce. So originally spun out of the National University of Singapore, offices in Seattle, Dublin, Beijing, Tokyo, and HQ out of Singapore. I'm actually calling out of Singapore right now, 12 hours ahead of you guys. So we run two lines of business. Retail SaaS solutions are fundamentally used by brands, retailers, and marketplaces, the likes of Rakuten, Uniqlo, and Urban Outfitters, to name a few. And we also operate the world's largest shopping lens network of more than 800 merchants with more than 400 million products across the world. So our shopping lens are natively embedded within 5 major OEMs today, Samsung, Huawei, Vivo, Oppo, and LG, that fundamentally generates processing more than 500 million queries a month right now. So that gives us a good view of what's actually happening with the consumer behavior. So let's talk very quickly about the impact of COVID-19. All right. Now, retailers continue to face growth constraints. A lot of offline retailers are predicting heavy losses in 2020. All right. Many of them will assume that the growth in online sales will not be sufficient to offset the lost sales in store closures. Now, this is a study done by Forrester. But again, there are still ways in which retailers and brands can do something to recover or at least offset these losses by understanding what has changed in the consumer behavior and using very, very smart tools to be able to gain back their share of wallet. Now, because of our first-party data from our sellers in Asia, I mentioned that we process more than 500 million queries a month, primarily across APAC. Now, because of that, we had a very early view of what's happening in Asia, particularly China, as early as January 2020. So we could see the early impact and early changes, starting with the lockdown in Wuhan on the 23rd of January. So we saw all non-essential categories experiencing an immediate decline. The fear was there. But in the essential categories like healthcare products, electronics, and kitchenware, it experienced the 3 largest increases. Now, you might ask me, why electronics? Well, a very simple reason. If you're a household of 8 in China, you're not going to share one laptop amongst 8 persons. So very readily, they went out to snap up the laptops to make sure that everybody has access. But slowly, as we move into March, and especially towards the tail end of March, which represented almost 2 full months of lockdown across China already, we saw in online buying for non-essential categories starting to recover. Now, if you look at China as a playbook for the rest of the world, it is repeating itself in almost different regions. Now, interestingly enough, we saw footwear and sportswear experiencing the largest increases, towards the end of March and in April. And I think we can all guess the reason why. All right, too much of a lockdown without any physical activity, it's not good for the body, and that's probably the reason why. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more about our COVID-19 impact study, you can scan the QR code and download the report where we share some of our deeper insights. Now, next, let's look at the changes in consumer behavior, because before we can react to it, we need to understand what has fundamentally changed and what are the implications in retail. So Deloitte did a very good survey on consumer sentiments recently and their attitudes across APAC. And what they found were fundamentally 4 things. All right. Despite the pockets of reopening, we see net consumer optimism has actually decreased. The worries about the income. So most consumers are continuing to expect a long-lasting impact, right? Where the lack of a vaccine that's causing a lot of fear, the pandemic will likely become endemic. We can't do anything about it, so we react to it. All right, we work around it. So as income decline, consumers are spending more on essentials and not necessarily discretionary categories, with the exceptions of certain markets like South Korea and China. So consumers are shifting to an online and digital solution, as well as reduced contact channels to avoid one-on-one contact and to still access their goods and services. Now, of the three primary purchase drivers that has surfaced as significant considerations, 34% stress on price being the main top purchase driver, compared with 28% in April. So it's becoming more and more important because of worries over income. Number two, 30% increase their usage of delivery services. And most important, an overwhelming 56%, and I dare argue probably more, are now stressing safety as the prime consideration. Retailers should be cleaning their stores more often, right, before they give assurance. So these three factors are fundamentally very important. Let's look at the further evidence. All right, 35% of all UK online purchases during lockdown were actually made by Amazon. Now, how about that? All right, that's an increase of 30% since December 2019. So Amazon is doing well. Now, half of the apparel, textile, and footwear sales in UK were transacted online in May. Indian, Chinese, and South African consumers are likely to prioritize luxury shopping after the lockdown lifts. Why? Because they have already delayed a month or two in buying luxury products. So they still have money in the pocket. They're just waiting for the right time to come back for them to make the purchase. Now, China is a very interesting market, and there's a lot of learning points that we can take away from there. So we look at China when it actually goes into when the lockdown ceased and it goes back to the normal. It's not really a normal, all right? Behavioral shift, the momentum that's caused by it continues to increase, right? In January to April, for the first 4 months, retail sales fell by 16% year on year. But online sales rose almost 9%, $360 billion. Now, this is the latest number. There was, so China experiences what they call an annual 618 shopping event, or rather a mid-annual in June. It's kind of like the Black Friday, except that they do it in mid-year. JD.com, which is the equivalent of Walmart over in China itself, reported an 18-day GMV sales of $38 billion. That's more than 33% up from the prior year. That is significant. That is really, really significant. So there's a lot of learning points that we can take away from this. If you look at China today, more than 500 million Chinese consumers now live stream content. That's 2.5 times the number back against December 2018. Now, e-commerce has moved very heavily. So it accounts for nearly 30% of all content live streamed on live stream content in China that outperforms sports, outperform concerts. Now, globally, what we're seeing is also online giants doubling down. So Shopify has relaunched its email for sellers. Google just relaunched its organic free product listings. I believe they just announced it last Monday or the Monday before that. Even Facebook has introduced shops with AI tools. They're all getting ready for the sustained buying behavior in online. Even the brands themselves, right? We've all heard about how Nike was able to do well in China on online to recover the losses in the offline sales. For the first time ever, they were able to achieve $1 billion in annual digital revenue in China and EMEA. So 9 out of 10 shoppers are very concerned about going back to the stores. 40% are limiting their visits or avoiding stores altogether. And 62% will only spend money if they are assured of the in-store safety measures. And what the brands and retailers are also telling us is that more than 68% of them are already accelerating plans to deploy more machine learning and other tech solutions to deal with the new implications itself. So I'm going to move a little bit faster, all right, in terms of how can retailers adapt to the new normal. 4 points I want to make about the new reality. Store reopening is fundamentally different in every way going forward because safety is the #1 concern. Now, how do you keep your customers and associates safe while playing a new role in customers' life? Can stores offer online ways for customers to search against store inventory while in the store, or better still, before coming to the store? Now, all retailers and brands need to accept one thing, all right? Customers' values and behaviors have fundamentally changed as well because they are all concerned about safety. So if, for instance, if they are concerned about touching products on shelves, how can stores offer virtual tryouts and sampling instead? So if you walk into a cosmetic store in downtown Tokyo right now, all of the cosmetics are actually covered in plastic. You can't touch them, right? You need to communicate with the store assistant or the store associate in order to sample the products. That is the level of safety that they're offering for shoppers throughout. So think of stores being a part of the customer journey rather than an end destination, because stores will now need to play a different role. Think omni-channel and think of the store as part of the customer journey, because reopening stores have already started. So lay the tracks while the train is moving. And that means immediate safety, prioritization, offering deliveries online, or offer pickup options. So think about appointment-based shopping, where products can be sampled virtually, be researched virtually before the final purchase and a pickup. That could be a method of a customer journey that customers are more comfortable with. There are many, many different ways. Now, some of the key retail tech solutions to consider, especially where safety is concerned: AR, VR, and 3D solutions for virtual sampling. Now, how do you bring stores to the shopper if you can't bring shoppers to the store? The answer is very simple: it's virtual product sampling, virtual showrooms, and even virtual malls. With many cases of malls in China virtualizing themselves to allow for the Chinese shoppers to basically browse from the comfort of their sofas and their couches. So these technologies offer additional advantages. In fact, a recent Nielsen survey or data actually shows that more than half, 51% of global consumers are willing to try AR and VR to assess products and services because they're not able to physically visit stores. And the only alternative is to have these immersive experiences brought about to them. Interactive AI solutions like image recognition, visual search, live streaming. The future of air check-ins it's very likely going to be contactless. And we've heard many airports providing check-in using facial recognition. So if facial recognition could be used for airport check-ins, why can't it be used for checkouts for stores, where it minimizes, again, the different points of physical contact? AI shopping lens on smartphones could also be another method in which you can simply lens any product in the real world without touching it and showing matching products immediately. It is currently available on phones like Samsung and Huawei and LG phones. So these are examples in which it gives empowerment and power to the hands of the consumers to really try products wherever and whenever they are. Autonomous stores and robots are already creating contactless shopping experiences. Right? That's because in stores itself, we are seeing social distancing being encouraged or being practiced. So self-servicing solutions powered by, again, AI, facial recognition, and self-checkouts could make both in-store experiences better for customers. The last point I want to make is about personalized recommendation to optimize shopper preferences. So COVID is going to disrupt normal buying behavior, which means more and more purchases are going to go online. What that means is even more data and compute required to understand household and consumer behavior. Now, how do you differentiate personal shopping from household shopping? There are a lot of data points. There are a lot of breadcrumbs as well in terms of understanding consumer intent when what has moved. So this is where all smart algorithms and analytics comes in, understanding consumer behavior, visual analytics, for instance, that's combined with customer preferences in order to offer them smarter recommendations for different members of the households involved. Now, how can AI solutions help transform retail? I'm going to share with you 4 examples of how we have worked with different brands and different retailers, offer these experiences very quickly.
In the interest of time, would you mind if we move these last points to the sessions where people both can ask you questions and you can continue with the presentation? We unfortunately have to move on to Sampler at this point.
Okay, all right. So no problem with that. If there's any questions on that viewers have, they can also email me directly. It's oliver@ViSenze.com.
Great, yeah. So everyone interested in continuing the conversation with Oliver, please move to sessions, and I will bring now Marie Chevrier up to discuss Sampler. Thank you, Oliver.